Join Louisiana Right to Life in protecting the vulnerable as we share pro-life stories, insights, and news from the Pelican State. Welcome to the Pro-Life Pod.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Pro-Life Pod. My name is Ben Clapper with Louisiana Right to Life, and the Pro-Life Pod is where we discuss all things pro-life in this great state of Louisiana. Today is a definite bittersweet episode where this month we are saying bye to a longtime colleague and partner at Louisiana Right to Life, Sarah Zagorski, our communications director. And we are really excited for the great things that she is going to be doing as she moves on to great new opportunities. But we're also definitely a little sad that she's going to be leaving our team and taking a position at Americans United for Life. So let me bring in our communications director and the new leader of communications for Americans United for Life, Sarah Zagorski. Hey, Sarah, how you doing?
Hi, everyone. I have a lot of emotions. I'm very excited to do this episode with y'all and talk about the future and also talk about the past a little bit and all that's been accomplished here in Louisiana.
Absolutely. Well, Sarah, like I said, this is definitely a bittersweet conversation. We are definitely going to miss you here. We know you're not going that far away, that you'll be still around, but seeing you every day and working on things, we definitely will miss you. And you've done so much for Louisiana Right to Life and for the pro-life movement. But what we're at the same time, we're really excited for you and your new opportunities as you take on Americans United for Life.
Yeah, so with Americans United for Life, I'm really excited to join as their senior communications person, an executive leadership position for me in a national organization that's been around for a very long time. I'm really excited about that opportunity. I'm really humbled by that opportunity to speak on behalf of people who argue before the Supreme Court, on people who've worked in the movement for so long. It's just been such a journey to this moment. I feel like I've worked really hard to this very moment in my life where I feel like I've arrived in a sense to a place of where I've wanted to be. So I'm very thankful to that. And a lot of that has to do with all the work I've done here that's led me to that. So
This cause, yeah, we've been fortunate to have your work and your partnership and all the hours that you've put in to this organization. But I mean, yes, we may have been part of your journey, but your journey in the pro-life movement predates us. I mean, there's many people, kind of like myself, right, who, I got into this because I thought it was important. I wanted to be involved and make a difference. For you, though, this cause is much more personal based on your lived experience in your whole life. And so, I think for many people out there who maybe they haven't followed you or read your story or heard you speak before, I was thinking today maybe we could spend some time you sharing why you got in the pro-life movement, how we got to know each other, why working for Louisiana Right to Life and now AUL, why that's so important for you to be dedicated to this cause.
sure, yeah, and it is really personal to me. I've worked professionally in this cause for a long time, but it does stem from my personal story. So I just have to go back to the beginning. My birth mother, she was a Hispanic immigrant from Honduras. She actually came to America for the first time on a boat, running from a domestic violence situation from her father with her sister. She came over here just on a boat together and started from scratch. And from there, she got married very quickly as a teenager and began having children and began kind of a lifestyle and a life of poverty, entered into a life of poverty and kind of a life of crisis ultimately. She became pregnant with me in 1989, and I was her seventh pregnancy. And that pregnancy was actually the result of an affair that she had with a very successful person known in the New Orleans community. And she kind of looked at him as a person who would solve her problems, bring her to some peace and, bring her some stability in her life, right? Because she's had so much instability in her life. But sadly, that was not the case. When she became pregnant, that relationship dissolved. And my mother was also, like many women who have abortions, she was familiar with abortion. She had two previous abortions in her past. So she wasn't what you would call and define as an abortion vulnerable woman. So she was very kind of primed for the industry to take another life, right? Primed for the industry to target her. And that's exactly what happened. She went to Dr. Akpalabi at Gentilly Medical Center for Women, and he performed what's known as an induction style abortion, where he delivered me at 26 and a half weeks. and he advised my mom to let me die on the table. And, that really was when I learned this as a young girl. I didn't really understand the scope or all that was involved with those moments. But thankfully, and this was a really life saving moment for me personally, she said, I wasn't breathing when I was born. And she said to him, I'm going to sue you if you don't give her medical care and get her breathing again.
Wow.
So, yeah, that's where it started. That's where my story started. I was sent to Children's Hospital Trauma Birth Ward in New Orleans, where I did recover. And I later learned that in a lot of my work, it was something I found out is that Dr. Pahlavi was under review in 1989 for performing a botched abortion. So that threat of a lawsuit really was enticing for him to get me medical care. But it was really my birth mother that saved my life in that moment, who stood up to someone who had a position of power over her, and she decided, no, I want my child to live.
Wow. I mean, Sarah, obviously I've heard your story before, but every time I hear it, just so thankful your birth mother advocated for you, so thankful that you're alive, and just such a powerful story. And just it just shows you in the abortion culture how close someone can be between
Life or
alive and
death.
not alive. I mean, just remarkable. And for your courage to share your story. I mean, I think you were, what were you, how old were you? 13 or 14 when I first met you, or maybe you were 15. I don't know. How old when you
14, I
first,
think. 14,
14 when you
yes.
first started
Yes.
giving your talk publicly and sharing your story. When I was a college student is when I first heard you talk and begin to share that story. And I just remember thinking, wow, that's a powerful story.
Yeah, and I always say about my story, and that, of course, that's very riveting, and finding out about that as a child is very hard to find out about. But I would say one of the things too that I was gifted by, and that is having a relationship with an abortion vulnerable woman, of sharing a life with someone in that position. And I always say that the years after, so a part of my story, Ben, is that I spent 7.5 years in foster care. And during that time, I was with my birth family, and I did see the conditions in which a lot of women who choose abortion live. And one of the things I've been determined as professionally and personally is to undercover the reasons why women choose abortion, and also to find out ways, how do we help them? How do we get in their shoes so that we can reach them? And I feel like my personal experience has helped me do that. It helps me see from their vantage point, see from that woman in crisis's vantage point.
Yeah, well, and then not only do you know from your experience of your birth mother, but in your in Miss Bobby, your adopted
Yes.
mother,
So
yeah. So it's like you have so many different layers to your story, and I know for you're it's almost like even as you've grown up, you've been in a sense finding new aspects and layers about your own life's journey.
yeah, so yeah, when I was, for those who don't know, I was placed in foster care for the first time at 16 months, and I was placed into this amazing family that it was just two people. They couldn't have children, just average regular people. My mom, my adopted mom now, she was a kindergarten teacher. My dad worked at the DMV, and they had one extra bedroom, and they took me in, not having any promises that they would get to adopt me. And they actually had a relationship with my birth mother and with my birth family. They really deeply loved my family, and still do today. So that relationship, seeing that love, really helped develop my comprehensive love for the movement, because I saw that it wasn't what they're saying online or on TV or in the headlines, that pro life people really do care about women in these situations. But Miss Bobby, my adopted mom, she actually had an abortion in her 20s in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and had abortion regret. So I learned from her perspective the decades of pain abortion causes women, on that perspective, right? The post-abortive women and what it does to her. So I have had very comprehensive life in this about the issue of abortion, learning about it from in a lot of different capacities.
Well, yeah, it shows you again in the importance of great people, great couples stepping up and stepping into the foster care arena and adopting a child or just fostering a child. And that's what your parents did. And I mean, but the impact that they've had on your life is obvious because they're your parents, right? But I mean, your life would never have been the same without them, and their selflessness and their dedication to you, which really their dedication continues to this day. I mean, can I say a story about your father and
Sure.
how
Yeah.
much he loves you? I mean,
Yeah.
for probably for the for the 8 years Sarah's been here, Sarah's dad brings her lunch, maybe not every day, but many
At least
days.
weekly. Yeah, weekly.
Yeah, I mean, just a man with a heart of gold who just loves you and cares for you so much. So, I mean, their dedication started then and continues to today.
Yeah, and I see that as such a gift that a lot of people don't think about. If my life would have ended that day on January 4th, 1990, right, their life would be completely different. So many people's lives would be very different. And I also think, too, my mother passed away when I was in college. It was a very difficult time for my family. And I remember going to her apartment and helping my sister clean out her apartment and thinking there's no redemption in this. She suffered so much in her life. But I've come to learn after, a decade later, a decade and a half later, that the redemption kind of is me sharing the truth about women like her, right? That's what I find redemption in, is saying the industry is trying to deceive and hurt and manipulate women in these situations, and they need to be told the truth in order to heal, in order to make better choices for themselves. So that is one of my primary motivations, is really that moment of I'm determined to make sure that her story is shared and that women that are in similar situations know that there's other options for them.
Absolutely. Well, and I'm just, I remember Miss Bobby, being out on the sidewalks in front of the abortion facility, holding a sign that says, I regret my abortion. She's been and did she do that before, or at the time when you were young? I mean, because you were kind of then raised as in her with Miss Bobby, in all these pro-life activities, right? Is that right?
Yeah, but she started doing that before me. Like, she
Okay,
started doing that before me, and her sign said, "I had an abortion. Please come talk to me." And just like
that's right.
peacefully saying, "Listen, if you want to know what's about to happen to you, I've done it. Come talk to me first." And I believe she's reached so many people with that message. And then she worked, of course, with Rachel's Vineyard and helping women heal after their abortion stories, showing there is healing and forgiveness and hope for them. So I did grow up, in a sense, at that Ridge Lake facility, watching her hold that sign, "At an abortion, please come talk to me," and seeing all the women in those situations, going into that clinic. And it was there and in many of the facilities I've been to where I've seen that this lie of choice, that the women that walk into that clinic, they do not believe they have a choice. It has nothing to do. That's just a very good word that the industry has coined and taken for themselves as a guise to really say these women are hopeless and desperate, and this is what they're offered in return by the industry. So it was really seeing that through 40 Days for Life. Like, I remember back in when I first joined with Louisiana Rights Life, I helped with 40 Days for Life, seeing those women walking into those clinics with such desperation on their face.
Well, and so we were kind of jumping around, but
We are.
I kind of, I said you were raised by Bobby, so just I think maybe, so okay, you were in foster care with your birth family, and then with your parents now, and but then at some point things came to a head, right? Tell me
Yes.
about that.
So just for the listeners to understand, so foster care's goal is always your reunification with the biological family, which was attempted in my case in the state of Louisiana multiple times. Unfortunately, in my case, they had to do an investigation due to sexual abuse that was found in the home, and that essentially caused an opening for me to be adopted because they were able to find proof of that incident and other incidences like it. And I was adopted at the age of 9 following that investigation. But in total, I spent 7.5 years in the system, and then I was adopted by the same family that took me in, which I was very fortunate because many of my siblings didn't have that kind of consistency. But for me as a person, being adopted at 9, right before that high school time, I was able to go through a lot of healing. I think during high school and kind of recovery from the trauma I had experienced right in the nick of time. And yeah, and then I went to college when I turned 18, and I after that, after my adoption, I would say I began to have a regular life. I began to have a life of peace, which I didn't have before.
Wow. Well, and Sarah, when you first started sharing your story, was that something that came natural to you? Were you excited to do it? I don't even know if I don't know the answer to this question. So this would be new for me. Is that when you were a teenager? Is it like, oh yeah, I want people to know about my life? Curious about that.
I think I had mixed feelings about it. I think in high school, I was very determined to move away and go to college somewhere else, which is what I did do, to get away from my story, actually. I could see, though, from the many, the couple, many, but couple experiences I had with you and actually with Lee Zachary and some others, where I shared my story, I saw how it impacted people and how people were moved by it. And that was important to me. I did see that as something that was valuable and important to be done. But when it came down to it, I never as like a life goal at that time wanted to be a person that shared my story publicly because it is so personal and it's very hard to talk about. It's very hard to constantly revisit something that's painful for you. So not when I was in high school, it wasn't until after college that I began to kind of accept that this is going to be a part of what the plan for my life was going to be.
You've shared with me, even and recently, that this is your calling, that this is where God has placed you. And it was in college or after college, you started to feel that this is your place, this is your role. And, is that's how it happened?
Yeah, and that's how I've seen it. Kind of see it as a progressive thing that happened within my heart of healing of after my mom passed away and after some things settled down with my birth family. I became more accepting of okay, this is an opportunity actually for me to shed light on the abortion industry and the women they target and the families they target, and that began to motivate me. And then I became very excited about that calling. I became very, I would say, devoted to that calling in a sense. I was set on I'm never going to leave this work because of how personal it is to me. So I think a lot of my hesitancies with it before were just my own pain of having to get through that pain and heal from that.
Yeah. Well, and so it's you are such a great advocate because you have your personal story, but then your advocacy goes beyond your personal story in a sense, though. I mean, it's for you, it's never separated probably, but
Right.
I mean,
What's hard about it?
I mean, obviously in your 8 years here with Louisiana Rights Life, which not long after college is when you came for your first stint, with us, you've been able to share your story, but you've been able to advocate for life and for moms more than, in a sense, your story, using your God-given talents and abilities, to communicate and to, lead projects and efforts. And so, it's been a long journey. I mean, I'm thinking all the different types of things that have, that you've done in these 8 years. And I mean, as we sit the other day or today, we're like, okay, well, what are some of the top things? And it's impossible for us even to go through all the different types of things that you have done here. So it's been a lot of variety of things that you've been able to accomplish and lead here.
Yeah, I would say some of my favorite things that I've been a part of is obviously the big cases, right, in the state of Louisiana, June Rousseau, during that time. And I think predating that, I did a lot of research and investigation of Adelta's abortion facility and learning about their clinic violations. And I love research; it's one of my favorite things to do. So when I learned about their like just horrendous conditions and things like that, those sort of things motivated me to, as a writer, to expose them better. And I think one of my first op-eds in the Washington Examiner was about the June medical case and the need for admitting privileges in the state of Louisiana. So some of these things I've done out of a professional curiosity, but also out of wanting to expose how horrendous the clinics are in the state of Louisiana. Now, thankfully, after Roe, we don't have that now, but that was a big learning process. And it was a learning process as a writer, what to pull as, the most important things out of that. So I
Right.
grew a ton in that. And I've written, I would say professionally, my top gifts would be my writing ability and
Right.
my writing ability on the topic of abortion. And I feel like that's something I've worked really hard at developing over a long period of time.
For those who don't know, that was the Delta Abortion Facility in Baton Rouge, which in Louisiana was, I mean, there were many really bad abortion facilities, including the one that your birth mother was in, but the one in Baton Rouge is one of the worst. And the violations and the citations, and really the Department of Health in Louisiana should have shut them down years ago, and it took
Yes.
the overturning of Roe to shut them down. And certainly your research and your work, helped to bring sanctions upon them in the process.
Yeah, so those are some of the highlights, and I would say, as a communicator, I've really aimed to be a versatile speaker and writer on the topic of abortion. I think learning audiences in the state of Louisiana, which audience, what message needs to be heard to that specific audience has been important to me. I worked on the Love Life Amendment campaign with you and back then, and that was really an amazing, powerful time to see that get passed. And then during COVID, I initiated a baby bag campaign for New Orleans women where we had baby bags distributed to hundreds of moms in the area. And that was a really critical time for the city because we were all without supplies and moms were very vulnerable during that time. And a variation of that still exists today through the baby bag supply drive. So those are some of the things I'm really proud of, I'd say, in the last 8 years or so.
Well, and I wonder, we probably could go back and calculate all the number of diapers that have been distributed through that first one during COVID distribution, but then all the subsequent ones. So, I mean, it's kind of all a fruit of your labor in a sense. All these families who have been helped by these diaper distributions that we've done at our office in New Orleans, but we've also done them in Baton Rouge. We even did a diaper distribution down in the Bayou area after one of the hurricanes. So all of that,
Yes.
in a sense, is as an offshoot of the impact you made through that first one during COVID.
Well, and I was gonna say I also had the honor of presenting my mom with the Proudly Pro-Life Award at the gala with Tim Tebow. And of course, no one can quantify with an award all that she's done. But
Sure.
I always see that picture of her. I saw it in the paper once in New Orleans of her holding her sign, just kind of pleading with women, please talk to me. I had an abortion, and that's such a motivating thing, and that should remind us all, that we need to be continuing to do this work because there are women out there just like her that would just love to have the opportunity to come across someone before they make that decision.
Yeah, and you mentioned the Love Life Amendment. I mean, there was so much you had to do then to try to answer and to quell the misconceptions that people were bringing up as we led towards the vote. And for those of you who don't know, the Love Life Amendment was a Louisiana constitutional amendment in 2020 that, in the midst of COVID as well, that we were able to pass with 62% of the vote. And so you, as communications director at that time, led that effort to try to inform people and educate people about the what the amendment was and why it's so important it was to pass it.
Yeah, and that was a challenging time in a sense because we had to constitutional amendments can be complicated, but to make it digestible for the public to understand, I think we did a really good job doing that, which is why we had such great success. And then the same thing during the reversal of Roe, we
Right.
had a lot of questions about what our trigger law was, the Reaffirmation of Human Life Protection Act, and what it would mean for the state of Louisiana. And I really enjoyed talking to the press about that time because there was so many questions and concerns, but we were able to, I think, articulate that in a good way and reassure women that, for example, that miscarriage management is not up for grabs. We don't have to worry about that. This is not what this is about, those sort of things. So during all those things, I grew as a person significantly in how to communicate those messages, but I also really enjoyed it. So
Well, and along the way, it'd be interesting to go back and count how many media interviews you've done. You probably couldn't even figure that out, right?
no,
But
I
I
could
mean, the
not.
hundreds of media interviews you've done over these years and all different topics, all different issues, including most recently this past legislative session with things that were happening there. So, I mean, the internet will forever be able to point to you and all your interviews, I'm sure, if for the pro-life cause here in the state.
Yeah, we had some phenomenal interviews with like Politico, New York Times, right here, actually in this room, during the reversal of Roe, because there was so much public attention on Louisiana as a state that had an immediate reversal, the trigger law in place. So yeah, we had some great interviews on that, and yes, you will see my name on that topic everywhere from here on out. So.
Well, and now even more in a sense, as this month you take over this great role with Americans United for Life, which again, as you said earlier, a national organization with a long track record of their pro-life advocacy. And so I got to imagine while of course we know it's sad leaving here, but I'm sure you just got to be excited with the opportunity to have a new platform and to continue your advocacy for moms and babies, but in a different way.
Yeah, I think I'm excited to be a part of shifting the needle for people that are around the country that are undecided on the issue of abortion. That's something that's really important to me because I think that's like an untapped group that we have so much room to work with. And
Mm,
that's one of my goals. I would hope through whatever media campaigns I'm able to do there and kind of spearhead, I'm hoping to shift the public opinion on the issue of abortion. We can't, it's my deep belief, we can't lose the public on this issue because that public votes, right? So we have to
right.
continue even, and of course, Louisiana is a very different place than like California or states
Sure.
like that. But there's a lot of work to be done across the country, and there's a lot of growth that can be done and a lot of change that can happen.
Well, I've always said that Louisiana needs to, uh, you know, needs to help lead the cause for life, and even if that means that our people are leading in other places and in other ways, because we've had people come from Louisiana or through Louisiana Right to Life and are leading the cause in the pro-life movement. I mean, obviously, in the congressional level, we're known for that right now. Obviously, with the Speaker of the House and Majority Leader, but in the pro-life cause and the movement as well, you're going to continue that Louisiana legacy of impacting the nation for life. And I mean, that's going to be so exciting to see the successes that you have across the country, and to know that it was Louisiana and our supporters and our organization that have helped in some small way to do that. And I mean, so Sarah, we're really excited for you. And like I said at the beginning, certainly it's bittersweet because we're going to miss you here, but we're just excited for all that you're going to do across the country.
Thank you. And I think that's such a good way to just like end this in a sense. But lighting the way to pro-life Louisiana has been kind of our tagline for many years. But look, you and the team here should see Louisiana as a beacon of light to the whole nation in a sense. And we see that in the leadership in Congress right now. And then, like you said, a lot of the people here have worked for life. And you've also done a lot in other states to advance the cause for life. So I do see Louisiana in that place. And obviously, Louisiana is arguably one of the most pro-life states in the country. So it's definitely a place where that brings hope to the nation.
Yeah. Well, absolutely. And on behalf of our whole organization, board, staff, supporters, everybody, just how grateful we've been to you and your sacrifices and your commitment and your long hours and your hard work to this cause. So know that we're thankful for you and all that you've put in effort, and just, again, looking forward to seeing all that you accomplish around the country.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Well, thanks everybody, and thanks to Sarah Sarah Zagorski, Communications Director of Louisiana Right to Life, for joining us today. And thanks to everybody for listening. Please share this podcast, share the word. You can find more about Sarah Zagorski's story online. Just Google her, visit her website, find social media as well, so you can learn more and be inspired by her story and can take your own step forward in advocating for moms and babies. So thanks so much. Please subscribe, like, and share our podcast. Thanks so much. Have a great one.